Look at you. Yes, you are. Yes, you come here, little guy. You just look at this little IFI Uno. Let's talk about him right now. What's cracking, everyone? My name is Ryan, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the IFI Uno. Now, I've had a significant amount of time with this little guy, and I'm ready to talk to you about him right now. But before I do that, let me just give him his proper due, and we'll put these aside here. And there. So tiny. So the IFI Uno is a DAC amp budget option from IFI Audio that retails in at just $79. But does it sound like budget? So inside the box of the unit, you will get, of course, the unit itself and a USB-C cable, and that is it. But at $79, that's kind of to be expected. All right, so now looking at the Uno on the back, you will see there are, two RCA outs as well as a USB-C, actually one set of RCA outs, as well as a USB-C input. Then going up to the front on the far left, you're going to see that there is an EQ button here that we'll talk about here in a bit. There is a power match button that is said to be used for, if you're going to use IEMs, you may not need to use that. If you're going to use headphones, the power match button is said to give them a little bit of a gain boost. Then you have the volume knob, which is also an on-off knob. Just note that. And then you get a 3.5mm plug here. Now, do note that because this is going to take a different kind of adapter if you're using some big boy headphones and want to plug it into this little port. Now, the Uno is all plastic and it weighs only 92 grams. So just know that it does also have rubber feet at the bottom to stop it from sliding around. So, being small, it stays in place. Stay in place. And so spec-wise, this does have quite a bit going for it for just $79. So this is, first of all, a MQA device, just like all the IFIs are, in that it will play MQA files. Now, one thing I failed to note on the volume knob is there is an LED behind there. So when you turn that on and you're using this, depending on the file type you're pumping through there, it'll change colors. Now, again, just like the other options I've talked about from IFI, it'll work with Tidal, it'll work with Qobuz, and with Roon, things like that. But, just note if you have things like Amazon Music Unlimited or that kind of thing, the colors may not necessarily match the file type being pumped through. Just kind of depends on the streaming service that you use. But if you want those pretty colors, those are the options that you got. And so the DAC itself is an ESS Sabre DAC, which is interesting because this is not something normally seen on IFI products, and we'll talk about the Sabre DAC here in a bit. The amp power is 211 milliwatts at 32 ohms and 39 milliwatts at 300 ohms. It's about the same that you would get out of the Zen Air DAC for reference. One thing to note here is that this is strictly powered on and off through your PC or mobile device that you plug it into. So that single USB-C cable, just note, you're going to plug that in and it can drain the battery. Although I'm happy to report this doesn't have the battery drain that I noticed on something like the IFI Go Bar. All right, so on to those EQ features that we talked about. So when you hit the EQ button up here, the first thing you're going to note is that will turn on game mode. Now, this is said to enhance things like footsteps and, those upper treble sounds and also some of the lower frequencies. The next mode is going to actually be movie mode. Now, that one is supposed to enhance things like voices. So think like clear voice when you get those on if you want to think about like a sound bar or something like that feature. And then the last mode is music mode, which is said to be just like it sounds for listening to music. And then you can just have it off and on no mode at all, which, to be perfectly honest, I did not notice any difference between music mode and leaving that off altogether, other than just reminding yourself, hey, I'm on music mode. And so, okay, as far as this little guy sounds, it's actually pretty impressive. Now, I gotta say, for being little, he's definitely compensating for something because it actually has some pretty decent stage coming out of this little unit. In fact, I noticed that it expanded on some of my narrower stage headphones just a little bit. Think of something like my Focal Radiance, made it sound just a little bit wider, which is nice because if you're going to use this to game, even without game mode, that's going to enhance that stage ever so slightly on there. Now, one thing I will note is that I definitely did need to use the power match option for pretty much all of my headphones that I put through this. Even my Cost Porta Pros, things like that, you're definitely going to want to use that power match option. I did not have to use it for IEMs, which is great because that's kind of how it is said to be featured. So I use my 10i T3 Plus, and I also use my brand new, just got them in, I'm going to keep talking because I can't remember the name of them, the SoundNote Zero that I just got in. I did plug those into this, and those sounded wonderful through this little device. So, you know, definitely does some well on the sound there. And then as far as the sound signature itself goes, honestly, being the ESS Saber DAC, I wasn't sure how different this was going to sound from other IFI units. I would say the biggest thing I noticed with this is that it definitely handled some power pretty well for power-hungry headphones, so I didn't have necessarily an issue with that. It definitely, you know, provided them with enough bass, with enough treble, and all of those kinds of things that the headphones are going to require. There's not going to be a lot of detail or analytical sounds coming out of this. You know, if your headphones have it, they're going to have it somewhat with this, but it's not going to, I guess, add more to that, if you will. And then one thing I did notice is dynamic range as far as, you know, soft sounds or lower sounds to quieter to louder sounds in the dynamic range. It definitely didn't do that as well as some other devices. So that's probably one, I guess, negative I would say about the sound of this little unit. But again, $79 unit. A good example of that would be Phil Collins' In the Air Tonight. That's a very good song to sample for dynamic range. And yeah, I definitely noticed that in that particular track, not doing quite as well with this unit. So I do want to bring up one issue that I definitely have with the Uno, and that is with the EQ settings, and more specifically the game or movie mode, and it's more towards the game mode. When I first used this unit and I would press the button to go to the game mode, I would notice some white noise feedback, and I mean, it was bad enough to when there was no volume being pumped through at all. I could definitely still hear that, to where I couldn't see how anybody would want that when they're going to play video games and, you know, want to hear footsteps. If you're just hearing white noise in the quiet moments, that's going to drown that out anyway. And what I did find through some research, going on Reddit and some other things, I heard some other people talking about this. One little, I don't want to call it a fix, but thing that does seem to work is actually moving the unit in a vertical position just to kind of reset that noise. And then once you set it back down, it was kind of gone. Also, sometimes I would literally just leave it play and it would kind of naturally go away. So I don't know if there's just a shielding issue or if it's maybe not anything like that. Maybe it's software related. Maybe it's something with a firmware update that they could fix, but it's definitely a problem. Movie mode I mentioned because I did hear that in movie mode, but not nearly as bad as game mode. In fact, it wasn't even all the time on movie mode. And then music mode, there was no issue at all, which is another reason why I think music mode and no EQ are the same thing, because there's zero kind of white noise problem, noise interference problem, however you want to call that. So I do want to note that I did go ahead and watch a movie on movie mode, even though I don't normally do that with headphones at all. And that is actually the movie Kong from, I don't know, a few years back, several years back, I guess. And I did that because it happened to be on Netflix, and I remembered it was a very dynamic range type movie. You know, there's roars and things in the jungle and, you know, all kinds of giant dinosaurs and things like that. It sounded fantastic on this. And then those quiet moments when they were talking with this mode on, there's definitely a boosting there to the voices. So probably somewhere in that upper mid range, you're getting a little bit of a boost with that EQ mode. So definitely, I do think it's a cool mode to use when it functions correctly. And, you know, more times than not, it did. So good on that one. All right, so in wrapping this up, I think it's safe to say that I am a fan of the IFI Uno. You know, you guys know that I wasn't necessarily a fan of the IFI Zen Air DAC. This, however, at $79, this little guy punches above his weight in size, price, and sound. Go for it. I mean, if you want to, of course. But I like it, if that matters. All right. I thank you guys for watching. Hopefully, if you did enjoy this video, please smash that like button. And please subscribe to the channel, as I do have more content that I'm working on. In the meantime, I will let you guys get back to doing whatever it is that you do. And I'm going to keep working on more videos to get out for you guys. And until then, I will see you in the next one.